be able to incorporate it and utilize it. Now, what do you think the core component of supervision is? It's one word: trust. This was a game show, we have a word. Trust. Why is trust important for supervision? Accountability. Why else? Okay. Now, if you did something wrong, would you tell somebody you didn't trust? No. If you needed to seek advice on something, or you didn't know what to do, would you ask somebody you didn't trust? No. So, is trust really kind of the core of good supervision? Right? Because if you don't trust your field instructor, right? If you don't trust them and you say to them, oh, I really think I messed up with Bob, because Bob said this, and I didn't know what to say, and I told him this, and I'm not sure it was the right answer. Well, you guys might have a feeling that if you don't trust your supervisor, they may, what? Use it against you. Give you a bad evaluation. Call Dr. Reitmeyer, right? So trust is key. I'm gonna make, and because there's a vulnerability, isn't there? In kind of opening yourself up, right? I'm gonna tell you guys a story. Hopefully this will stick with you guys, and this will be the one thing you take away from what I talked about today. And I'm gonna make myself vulnerable in telling you this. When I did my foundation field placement, if you guys remember from yesterday, a little pop quiz, I did my foundation field placement with children with developmental disabilities, right? I was in a specialized program working with children in the autism spectrum. And we all heard about how my first group went, right? Oh. So in the spring semester, my field instructor says to me, I'm going to have you start doing some play therapy interventions. I'm going to give you a child. We're going to go over the intervention and the model. We're going to practice the skills. You're going to learn the skills, and then you're going to use them in session. Well, guess what? I was horrible. Absolutely horrible. Okay? Give me adults, give me crisis, give me the police, give me correctional institutions, blood, guts, detox, I'm fine. Children freak me out. Okay? And then all of a sudden one day I was sitting in session, and part of the intervention model was to use puppets. Because sometimes it was safer for the children to have the dialogue or learn the skill from the puppet. Right? So I had 2 hand puppets. One was a raccoon and one was a skunk. And the first part of the intervention, getting the child to kind of buy into it, was just to play. Just to genuinely, wholeheartedly play. And I'm sitting there, and I'm starting to sweat, by the way, sweating. Oh my God, how do I play? What do I do? What would a raccoon say to a skunk? I don't know. And I'm sitting there, and I have my hand puppets, and I was like, oh look, I'm a skunk. Will you be my friend, Mr. Raccoon? This child looked at me and was like, I wouldn't play with you. That doesn't look like fun. Like, oh, okay, well, maybe next time. Yeah? And I could have done, I had 2 roads, guys, I could have chosen. One, suck it up and stuff it. Never talk about it again. So when I see my field instructor and she says, hey Jen, how'd it go with Johnny? Wonderful. It went great. Wonderful, we're great. We're making some progress on his treatment plan, we're good. No questions asked. Could have let it go. Road number 1. Right? How many of you guys have gotten this crossroad in life? Right? We know what I'm talking about. Road number 2. Suck it up. Be vulnerable. So you know what I did? I walked into her office and I cried. Said I suck. Children don't like me. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know if I can do this anymore. And you know what I used my supervision session to do? Learn how to play. That's what I did for an entire hour of supervision with her. She sat down on the floor with me, took a whole Tupperware toys, dumped them on the floor, and said, Jennifer, we're going to play. And I'm going to teach you, learn how to play. Guess what? That was taking a shot in the pride, huh? I mean, I'm a master's student in grad school, and I had to learn how to play. And you know what? I gained from that experience because she gave me the feedback on what I was doing wrong, what I needed to do to utilize that intervention appropriately. So when I got back in to the next session with that child, guess what? He played with me. And then I went home and cried again. I don't suck anymore, Mom, I don't. I'm gonna stay in grad school after all. Right? But that's the story I want you guys to think about. When you're in field and you don't know what you're doing, or you think you're doing something totally wrong, you have those two roads. And you have to ask yourself, what road's going to get me to where I need to be for my level of competence, for my skill development, and for the knowledge, skills, and abilities that I want to be able to say I've obtained this year in my field practicum. Okay? So each of you are going to have to figure out how to develop that trust with your field instructor. How many of you guys walked away, and a lot of you called me after your interviews, but how many of you guys after your interviews like, had a good vibe, right? I kind of clicked. How many of you guys know what I'm talking about? Like, yeah, I kind of clicked with that person. I kind of had that initial assessment of, I could get to know them, you know? Block week, you're gonna be with them like 40 hours, guys. This is the time where you get to know them. What do? Rapport building. The skills you just practiced today. Tell me about why you decided to be a social worker. Tell me about your experience in your MSW education. Tell me about what you do now and why you love it, or why you don't. Get to know them, guys. That's the core foundations of developing trust, okay? So, like I said, supervision can take any form at all, you know? It doesn't have to just be the stuffy, dry, you know, you did this well, you didn't do that well, we'll meet next week. I spent an entire hour of supervision playing. Melissa spent time as a field instructor going over specific topics that her students brought to her. They said, Melissa, I want to spend an entire supervision session talking about whistleblowing. So Melissa got materials, got prepared, and that's what they spent their supervision talking about. Let's say you're at an agency that doesn't work with a specific population. You want to learn more about them. How could I use this specific intervention that we use here with a different population? Okay? So supervision's really open, guys. It's fluid. You can be creative. You can be engaged. You can be what you want it to be. I don't want any of you sitting here in this room to be like, oh my God, it's Wednesday. I've got supervision at 3. Okay? Nobody here should be dreading a supervision session. You guys should be excited. You guys should be engaged. You guys should be prepared and ready. Okay? Now, after supervision, we want you guys to document it. And we actually have a form that you can utilize to do this. I think it's called the supervision note. All right?
Yeah, correct. It's in the book and on Blackboard, and it can be found on page 101. And there's an error on the form where it says form to be completed by MSW field instructor and review the student. That's actually backwards. The form to be completed by the student and reviewed with the field instructor.
Dr. Eimer was correcting a correction on the form. You guys need to fill this out after every supervision session.
Incorrect.
Okay? Now, I don't want a novel. Nobody wants a novel. Okay? Main points, bullet points, and ideas. Okay? There's a couple reasons we have you do this. One is so that you can kind of follow along in your progress through the year. You can see where you started from when you were in the office crying, the kids hate me, this sucks. You can see the progression in your learning, the evolution in your learning. Okay? And also, because it's a great way to clarify, seek clarification. How many of you guys have had a conversation with a family, friend, or loved one where you thought you said what you wanted to say, and they walked away from the conversation like they weren't even there. Okay? They took away something totally different from that entire conversation. You know? I do it all the time with my husband. You know, he'll say stuff to me and I'll be like, okay, I suck. No, that's not what I said. I'm sorry, you didn't do the dishes. You know, how many of you guys know what I'm talking about? Where you have a dialogue with somebody and you're like, oh, great, you know, I really feel like we got to the bottom of it, we talked about it, and then all they took away from that conversation is something totally different, okay? Part of the reason we have you guys do the supervision form is so that your supervisor can see what you took away from the session. And if there was a miscommunication, they can clarify it. How many of you guys, when you're getting constructive criticism, and I just gave you an example. You know, if my husband will say, oh, you're supposed to do this today, or you didn't. I feel guilty, right? I said I was going to do something, I ran out of time, I didn't do it. So, I feel guilt. So what do I express? Right? Feeling bad about myself, I suck. I'm sorry, I suck, right? So how many of you guys, when you get constructive criticism, don't hear the criticism, or the constructive part, you just hear the criticism? Right? So if your field instructor is trying to give you really good feedback, sometimes it's hard to digest, right? It's hard to swallow that. So if they have a session with you and they're trying to give you concrete feedback about a skill, and they can see you didn't get it, it's a great way for them to have an additional dialogue with you and say, it seems like this is what you took away from our meeting. And I wanted to let you know that was definitely not how I wanted our conversation to go, or that wasn't my intended way of delivering that message. Okay? So that's why it's so important. Seriously, we're not doing this just to make you guys kill more trees, not just to write more stuff, because I know you guys are like, oh my god, these field forms. They've been talking about field forms for 2 days now. But this is one of the most important forms that you guys are going to fill out. Okay? Not only that, but this is a great way for your field liaison to kind of keep track of what's going on in your placement. So if your field instructor calls your liaison, it's like, oh, Timmy's just not doing well at all. You know, it's the end of the fall semester, there's just really no improvement, I just don't know where this is going to go with Timmy. Well, guess what? Your field liaison is going to call you and talk to you. They're going to ask you for what? Supervision notes. Right? They're going to ask you, can I see your supervision notes? They can ask you at any time for your supervision notes. And if they get those supervision notes and see nowhere in there that your field instructors talk to you about their concerns, isn't that a little different? Right? It's kind of a check and balance. It's kind of a safety mechanism as well. See what I'm saying? Because we're going to talk about this later, so I'm not going to get into it, but as students, you kind of have two roles in field. You're a student, you're a learner, right? You're in an educational capacity. But you're also functioning as an employee, almost, of the organization, right? So, how many of you could just walk into your job tomorrow and get fired for no reason? How many of you? Well,
Or employment at will.
employment at will. But in general, you can't just get fired without due process. Do we know what I mean by due process? Okay. You have to tell the employee something's wrong. Right? And sit down and give them an action plan. Give them a time frame in which you want to see improvement. And you gotta have follow-up meetings, right? Same with you guys. You guys can't just get kicked out of field for no reason, unless it's obviously some extreme circumstance. You know? Exactly. I mean, if you decided to openly harm a client or burn the building down,
Or yell at, use profanity.
use profanity.
Use a field instructor or another colleague, which that tends to be like what typically happens.
Yeah.
People will lose their temper.
But unless it's an egregious, you know, if we're doing the 10-point scale, unless it's, you know, 5 or over, you guys can't just get kicked out of field, okay? So that's partly why your supervision notes are so important. Because it shows the progression of the dialogue and where you guys have been going. Okay? Let's see. Yes.
I noticed that you are saying that we switched and fill this out.
Yes.
And we'll do it with our field instructor. Does the field instructor
That was a really great question. On the supervision note, there's a box down there for your field instructor to sign it. Yes, we would like them to sign it. When you guys are in supervision, you can have them sign your timesheet for the week and have them sign your supervision note from the previous week. Done and done. Okay. Any other questions, dialogues, comments, suggestions, constructive feedback about supervision? No. We do not want those. Okay? Those don't come to us, those don't get uploaded. That is for you, your field instructor, and your field liaison as requested. Okay, we have enough people. Anybody have questions, concerns? Sleepy? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm thinking about, Christine's supposed to be by at 2:15, and instead of going into the skill set, I was thinking it might be better to take the break now to give her time to get here, because she said she was going to be coming at 2:15. I don't know if that means in the later part or not. And so it wouldn't be fair for me to launch into this skill set, which will take 30 minutes to make her way. So let's go ahead and take our 15-minute break now, and then come back.
Are you going to be sitting here? Yeah. Okay, I'll see my stuff right there.
I can't make a Venn diagram.
The life insurance waiver is processing.
Okay, so like they gave me $2,000 off of $200 and stuff. And she was thinking it across the semester instead of just one. That's not committed. I'm sure they're just like, oh yeah, I wouldn't worry about it. You're not gonna like you're gonna be fine. It's just annoying. It's not awkward, but you know they're doing it so much. It's like you saw that line, so. It says like my mom like transferred me to top that chair. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you're gonna do fine. I was like, it's like, you know, we just do another in today. If you drive, okay, well, I mean, you have like no card, like everything. Also, like, if she has things on, she got it right. She said something about text. You know, it's like you're gonna just make sure, yeah, make sure it has like your name. You're good. We're good. Definitely. All I need is a process. You gotta go over print it out There's already a line there.
I think it was like, so I'm guessing like that would mean your whole clear by tomorrow, like the beat is making tomorrow by already. I mean, that means like
Because like it doesn't look like paper when I make sure like from everybody because it takes it immediately outside help.
it's like my mouth is like transfer to like the day.
I'm coming today.
Oh yeah, I'm trying to that way.
And they're gonna give an email. Yeah, they know that way.
gave some good little tips that we give to our field instructors, so we were going to share them with you. I'm going to go ahead and give you a quick DBT skill. And the reason I'm going to give you this DBT skill is because so far, there's a method to how we've arranged things throughout the last 2 days. Jennifer's told you what you need to do and how you need to do it in supervision, offered great advice. And now here's the skill. So when you do get to supervision, if you need to ask your supervisor for something, or you need to tell them no to something that isn't working out, how many of you in here know DBT at all? We got a few folks. So y'all understand what DEAR is, right? Maybe, maybe not. You might know DBT but not know the skill. If you turn in your packet, I printed it out and I tried to make an exercise or an example that would be applicable to field. And we're going to walk through that. I'm trying to see, can one of y'all find it and let them know what page it's on? It's on page 111. Okay? So turn to page 111, but I'm going to talk to you about why this is important. Interpersonal, maintaining your relationships with other people. We're in the relationship business, right? It's all about how we interact with others. You know how I've talked about use of self? I don't think sometimes we realize how we come across to others sometimes. When we need to ask somebody for something or tell them no, that makes it even more difficult to figure out how to engage in a relationship with someone, right? It's already difficult enough and uncomfortable enough when we feel like we're not getting what we need, right? Or things aren't going the way that we planned. So sometimes we're put in situations where we haven't had an opportunity to exercise this skill. Does that make sense? So, the great thing about me stepping on this one is you get a flash show in the background, apparently. Just step away. Alright? Is that this will help you with it. There's actually more to the formula. There's the what you do, which is the DEAR, which is describe, express, assert, and reinforce, which I'm going to talk about each of those. And then there's man and give fast, and that really talks about how you go about it, which I'm not going to get into that aspect of it, but if you want to learn more, you can look it up. DBT is really good. But here's something really quick that I'm going to have you start practicing. All right, so if you want to tell somebody, hey, I need more information, or I'm unclear about this, your field instructor's giving you a project, and they're saying, okay, write a grant proposal for me on how we can do advocacy issues related to individuals with HIV/AIDS that have other and multiple disabilities. And they say, run with it. Just, go do some research, figure it out. You got this assignment for class, just go with it. So you're sitting there and you're doing this research and you're starting to feel overwhelmed, right? I don't know what they want. I've never done this before. I've got this direction in class, but how do I know it's going to be consistent with their expectations? So instead of drowning yourself in all of these worry thoughts, does that sound about right? Your first thing you're going to do is describe the situation. All right, now here's the big mistake that a lot of people make, which that they have on the next one is, you just want to stick to some sort of fact and be simple about it, one sentence. So here's an example. You've given me a task to complete this project and told me to just run with it. Right, that's a fact, right? There's no judgment in it. Your tone, you always have to pay attention to your tone, right? Because you don't want to say, you've given me this project and you told me to run with it. Okay, so you're going to say, you've given me an opportunity to work on this and develop my skill set. And next, you're going to express your feelings. And I appreciate that.